Gonna talk about. I know I always start off that way, but literally, there's these topics that come up, and I was like, oh, that's good. And I was talking to someone I really respect today, and as I was probably like belly aching over just life and where life is, there's something she said, which was, life is not for the swift. I said, oh, yeah, because the title of today's episode is actually swift change and lane change. And what that means is life, when going through grief or the aftermath of trauma, um, can sometimes feel like it's moving really fast, but other times feel like it's moving extremely slow. Like everything is happening, but nothing is happening at the same time. Like you're experiencing loss, you're experiencing the sadness, you're experiencing the trauma, and there's so many things that change. My address changed, my finances changed, my life essentially changed because the routine I had previously I no longer had. But at the same time, nothing felt like it was changing because it felt like it was the same story and the same sadness day in and day out, the same fear, the same depression, same anxiety. Things felt like it was staying in one stagnant place. And so when it comes to the aftermath and going through it, sometimes what we want to be a really quick change ends up being something slow. But there's so much beauty in the slowness. In society, we're not taught about going slow. We're taught about the hustle. We're taught about moving quickly. We're taught about becoming an overnight success and an overnight millionaire. And the thing about getting places in a quick way is that we really miss out on the process, the things that we were taught, the journey of going from one thing and then transforming into another. And we really don't get to see that side of ourselves because we're just so focused on how do we get there quickly? How do we um how do we move out of sadness and jump right into happiness? Like, can this thing just be over? And what I learned about grief is although I'm so against everybody who says it lasts forever, I also am not gonna start advocating that it's a quick fix, that it's just like, well, great, now grief is over. No, there's so many different elements that go into it. There's so many different, it can be a little bit complex sometimes, depending on who the person is, your connection to them, what you felt about them, like how close you were to them. And even though grief itself is the same, like loss is the same for everybody, how they lose somebody and how they react to it, that's all different. And so I can't expect that somebody who lost a child will also then understand what it's like to lose a parent or what it's like to lose a job or relationship, and the same for everyone else, right? But grief itself is a process. And the quicker we understand that it's a process that you grow through, the quicker we will be, or the quicker we should be in accepting it. I think a lot of people just try to deny that it's even happening. Like they just don't even want to, like, they don't want to start grief. They don't want to touch it. They want nothing to do with grief. They're like, get that thing away from me. And the thing about it is, whether you like it or not, life is happening to you. Whether I liked it or not, anxiety attacks were happening. Whether I liked it or not, my body was reacting in a way very violently to the grief. I was getting gallstone attacks monthly, actually, until they removed my gallbladder. But that was a really physical manifestation of all the trauma that my body was handling, but was no longer able to keep under wraps. Like it was out of control at this point. And in life, we're often told, keep it together, hold it together, don't let people see you falling apart. And that's cool. Except And when I say that's cool, I'm being sarcastic. Like, that's cool if that's the way you want to live your life. But the thing about life is sometimes things will catch up with you, and what you choose not to deal with will then deal with you. That's what happened to me. I'm not out here trying to preach. What I chose not to deal with then dealt with me. What I didn't know how to handle, what I didn't know how to manage, what I didn't know needed time to process, then dealt with me. I started working 2 months after my son passed at a customer service job. I'm great at customer service, but I started working in French, my second language. And at the time I hadn't worked in French, and so I was nervous about it. And there was so much happening. And because I wanted to get the job, I didn't tell anybody that my son had passed. Like, I was just like, let me just keep that hidden so that I can get the job. Well, yeah, I got the job. But then my first day after training, after getting on the floor, I had a panic attack. And at the time, I didn't know what a panic attack was. I didn't even, like, these are the things that we're not taught about until it happens. And then you're like, oh, that's what a panic attack is. Also, because panic attacks can look different in different people, you can't just say this is what it looks like and it's all the same. Um, but for me, panic attack was like my chest was getting tight, and I felt like I couldn't breathe, and so many different things were happening at the moment. I was uncontrollably crying. I had to step off the floor, but even when I stepped off the floor, it wasn't helping. I couldn't calm down. And I was just like, what is this and what is happening? Why is my mind attacking me in this way? Why is my body feeling like it hurts so much in this way? But that's because I was trying to deny that I was going through this process. Like, I knew I was sad. I knew my son passed. I knew there's nothing I can do to change it. And sometimes we tell ourselves, like, hey, well, since I can't change it, I might as well just go through it. I might as well just like get it over with. Grief was is not something to just get over. Grief is something that you process, you accept, and you said, okay, let me go through. I don't even believe that there's, listen, I know there's studies out there about the 5 stages, but for me, I didn't go through all those stages. For me, it looks so different. So I don't even like relate to any of that. I feel like the process I had to go through was examining where I was at, examining or acknowledging where I wanted to be, and finding a way to get there, finding a way to get from point A to point B. Now, what I actually wanted to do when my son passed was go to the gym, get healthy, because I knew that exercise was a great way to stay not just healthy, but to stay happy, to release the trauma, to release the stress. My favorite thing back then was swimming. Well, it still is, but my favorite thing at the time I wanted to do was swim. And swimming was so healing and so peaceful to me. And so I thought, okay, if I could get in the gym and I could swim, if I could write, finish my books, I knew that I had the story to tell. And if I could just sleep, those three things, I would be okay. Now, here's what happened. Society hit, and people around me were like, you need a job. Like, you stayed at home for so long. Now you need a job. Now you need to go out there and work. Now you need to do what real people do. Now you need to get in the real world. And at the time, I was living with my goddaughter's mother, a friend of mine, and it was a great gesture for my friend to take me in, but it was also too soon for me because my son had passed, which was like um my son and her, they're we call them brother and sister basically. And so now I'm living with my goddaughter, and now I'm living with the child. And at the time, my friend had expected that I would help babysit so that she could go to work. And it was just too soon. And I didn't know how to say that. I didn't know how to articulate it. I expected her to know this. And so I did something really foolish of me is I, instead of just explaining to her that it was too soon, instead of explaining to her that I couldn't take it on and none of that, and I just wanted to chill and relax, I got a job. I got a job. I ran away from one situation that I didn't know how to handle. right into another. And it was great that I finally got to use my French skills. It was great that I met a whole bunch of people. But what it did is it pushed me into a space where I wasn't ready for. I was not ready to go back to work. And because I wasn't ready to go back to work, because I wasn't ready to be in an environment where I had, and this, it wasn't just that I wasn't ready to work. It was that it was my first full-time job. When my son was here, I was a stay-at-home mom. I took care of him. Yes, I went to university, but even university, you do on like you have classes, right? But it's, you get breaks, you get different things in between. You can manage that. And also, when I was in university, my kid was here, and so I wasn't battling. I wasn't going through a situation that required more time, thought, process, energy, rest, all of that. And so I threw myself into work and I threw myself into learning a new skill at a time when my brain felt like it was splitting, at a time when I didn't understand who I was, at a time when I should have just been at peace. I did a swift change. I did a swift change. I moved too quickly. And because I moved too quickly, I did more damage to myself, I believe. I don't regret it. So I do my best not to regret things in life because we can use it to build ourselves up. But that swift change was something that I could have avoided. I could have managed the panic attacks and the sadness and all that other stuff if I was in a proper routine, if I was nourishing myself properly, healthily. I was getting up early. I was coming back from work and just passing out the whole night. I was tired. My brain was learning new things on top of managing the fact that I'm going through a new change. Like it was too much change. It was too much change. I did, like I said, swift change and lane change. I moved quickly and I changed lanes. I changed a whole bunch of things about myself because my friend and I, we had gone to Bermuda. I only had 2 weeks to get out of my apartment, 2 weeks to pack up my whole life, mine and my son's, put some in storage and bring the rest with me to her house. It didn't give me a lot of time to process. It didn't give me a lot of time to look at anything, to be like, okay, do I want this? Do I want like it did not give me a lot of time for anything. It was so rushed. Now, in one way, that could be a blessing because I didn't hoard anything. I didn't have months to just like let it sit there and like not touch it. I was forced to deal with it on the spot. But also, I was forced to deal with it on the spot. And sometimes when we rush things, sometimes when we are too quick on ourselves, we lose out. We jump the gun. We move in haste. And I have a friend who says this thing called haste makes waste. And as annoying as it is when he says it, he's not wrong. Sometimes when we jump too fast, we fail to plan, we fail to see what's going to happen, and we fall flat. And this was my flat moment that I now had to look at, man, all I wanted to do was work out, write, and rest. And instead, I had taken on this new job. And eventually, when I had left my friend's house, I moved back to my parents' house. My parents' house was 30 minutes away from work. And it wasn't feasible for me to take the bus anymore, so I had to get a car. And so, on top of now everything else happening, I then take on payments, car payments. Never again have I, like, it's not never again, never in my life had I actually had to pay car payments. And I chose at this point in my life to want to be an adult or to try to do the adulting thing, try to do the normal thing in society. The thing that everyone says, this is just progression, this is just how you move forward in life. I did the thing that a lot of, I know in the Caribbean community is so prevalent. It's like our parents ingrained in us that if we sit down for too long, then we're just a waste of space. Then we're lazy. Then we're all these negative names. And out of not wanting to feel shame, out of not wanting to feel lazy or to have that perception, we push ourselves. And I pushed myself to the brink and I broke. I broke myself. I broke myself. I got the car in March, and by July, I had to go on short term disability. I couldn't handle that anymore. Every day I was going to work and crying. Every day I went to work longing for the time I could just be home. I could just be resting. I could be sleeping. Longing for a time when I didn't have to listen to somebody else. Like I didn't have to get up and listen to people's issues, but I could just focus on my own. And now there's another lane change in my life. I'm on short term disability. I didn't even know that was a thing. And I hated the label. Like, I was like, but I'm not disabled. And this is not a knock against anybody who is. I was just trying to understand all these changes that were taking place in my life and how to not be crushed by them and how to move through them. Not to mention, and during this time of being put on on short term disability, I had to literally argue and cry and fuss and make up a whole stink with my doctor just for him to take me seriously. That I had to tell people over and over, I am not okay. At the time, I was like, I am not okay. I am not okay. I am not okay. And I had to find my own treatment. And when I told them all I wanted to do was go to the gym, write, and rest, they looked at me and said, that's what vacation's for. The only way I was going to get the help to get better is if I did it the way that they wanted, which was medication, was being suicidal even. My doctor has said, well, hey, you're not suicidal, so you're fine. As if suicidal was like, the goal or that was the marker for being healthy or insane. I have learned since then that sometimes things move at a slower pace, and that's okay. It is a okay to go against what society thinks. I, in that moment, had to be my biggest advocate. It honestly didn't matter what anybody else said because I listened to them, and that's how I got myself in the predicament. As to get myself out of the predicament, to get myself out of the mess I had created, I had to listen to only me and God. That voice had to take place of the thousands of voices talking to me. That voice had to be louder than the shame that was trying to be forced upon me. That voice had to be louder than the hurt little girl who was going through panic attacks, not knowing what to do. That voice had to be the one to champion for exactly what I wanted and not be bullied by doctors, by psychiatrists, and by medical staff, by the insurance company. I advocated for myself during that time. And in a way, because I advocated so strongly for myself and I chose not to do it the way they wanted me to, I didn't qualify to receive money. And for a lot of people, they can't go without because they got to pay bills, right? But I really had to weigh the importance. What was more important, my bills getting paid or my health being taken care of? What mattered more? And in that moment, I had to choose me. I no longer wanted to be swift. I no longer wanted to have all these quick lane changes, quick changes in my life, pivots here, pivots there. Flexibility, yes, to go with the flow and not to be so rigid on things, but flexibility in a way that is still healthy and that still maintains the integrity of who I was building was really important to me. And so, y'all, whenever you go to make a decision, I'm now learning that I have to plan it out. And I am not a planner by trade. I know some people love planning. That is not one of my strongest suits. It's something that I have to put into practice. It's something that I'm learning to discipline myself over. It's something that I'm now like, this is what's going to help me slow down and not miss what's happening. It's going to allow me to see things before it even happens. It's going to allow me to be in a space where I'm not second guessing or I'm not constantly cleaning up the messes of um, what happened because I jumped too fast. So remember this. Remember me. Remember my story. Whenever you feel like life is not moving quickly enough for you, there is beauty in taking things slow. Remember the story of the tortoise and the hare. Who won in the end and why? When you're focused, you will get to your destination. Hey, thank you so much for listening to the Lips and Language podcast. My name is Kola. I am so excited that you are here. If anything I said today resonated, then get in touch with me. I have an amazing mentorship program. It is for those who feel misunderstood, overwhelmed, going through grief. It is truly an amazing time. If you want more info, hit my website, lipsandlanguage.com. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can hit it up on the website or DM me. I have a free gift for you, and I would love to be in contact with you. Whatever you decide, just know that healing, it looks good on you. And I'm so excited that we get to do this journey together. Have a blessed day. And if nobody told you, I will. I love you. Enjoy your day, and we'll talk soon. Peace.